Gordon Macphail is the oldest continuously operating independent bottler in Scotland, being founded about 129 years ago in 1895. And they're known for having some of the deepest stocks of whiskey maturing in their warehouses in all of Scotland, a significant portion of which are from closed or otherwise rare distilleries that don't necessarily produce whiskey anymore. They have released some of the oldest whiskies in the world, including a Glenlivet that was distilled in 1940 and bottled at the age of 80 years old. I am starting a short video series focusing on Gordon Macphail in preparation for attending the upcoming Victoria Whisky Festival, my first time attending the Victoria Whisky Festival, where I'm altogether way too excited to have purchased a ticket to take in the Gordon Macphail Masterclass. Unlike other independent bottlers, Gordon Macphail are known for filling their own casks at a distillery directly, as opposed to buying casks already filled by the distillery themselves. As such, they take a lot of pride in cask management policies, and it really shows in the final product. I've been particularly drawn to Gordon Macphail's whiskies because from what I've experienced in my market, they release anywhere from solid bottlings to absolutely extraordinary whiskies from some of the most sought after or hard to find distilleries and at an extremely competitive price. However, 2024 is bringing some big changes to Gordon Macphail as they plan to cease contract filling their own casks of whiskey at other distilleries and instead are going to focus on filling casks of whiskey at the distilleries they own, the Benromach Distillery and the recently opened Cairn Distillery. Luckily for us, Gordon Macphail has more than enough stock in their warehouses currently to continue bottling as an independent bottler for really the rest of our lifetimes. But the decision to cease really does point to how difficult it is currently to source whiskey casks from other distilleries at a reasonable price. Today, I will be reviewing an award-winning 31-year-old Gordon and Macphail Mortlach that was distilled in 1989. My name is Matt. This is Whiskey on the West Coast. As I mentioned earlier, Gordon Macphail was founded in 1895 in Elgin, Speyside, as a grocery merchant selling tea, coffee, wine, and whiskey. The company derives its name from the two founders of the company, James Gordon and John Alexander Macphail. Now, John Urquhart joined the business as an apprentice in 1915 and was instrumental in growing the whiskey side of business, in particular selecting, purchasing, and maturing whiskeys from the local distilleries. He eventually came to own and operate Gordon and Macphail, and the Urquhart family still owns and operates Gordon and Macphail to this day. This early investment in fostering business relationships with local distilleries really seems to be one of the building blocks that led to their ongoing success in the whiskey business. Furthermore, during the Second World War, Gordon Macphail still filled large numbers of casks into the early 1940s. This meant that they still had a good amount of future stock, but also ensured that the business relationships that they had forged, as well as the whiskey knowledge and know-how that they had earned over the years, remained intact for when Europe returned to peacetime. In 1968, Gordon Macphail launched the Connoisseur's Choice line of independent bottlings. And personally, this is my favorite line of releases from Gordon Macphail because they're often quite affordable here in Canada while still being of an exceptionally high quality. Now let's be real for a minute. Whiskey is somewhat of a luxury. In real life, in actual essentials, it's not necessary for our day-to-day lives, even though I often treat it as such. But to demonstrate the prices and how I think they are reasonable in my market for Gordon Macphail bottlings, I want to highlight three bottlings in particular. I purchased a Delheuan 2008 13-year-old from a first fill sherry hogshead at Cask strength. That cost me $108 Canadian. Basically $100, 13 years old cask strength and quality sherry cask. That is a fantastic value. A Kalila, an Isla whiskey. Kalila 1997 23-year-old from a first fill sherry butt at cask strength at $270 Canadian, under $300. Again, Isla whiskeys demand a premium, especially from sherry casks and over 20 years old. That's an altogether reasonable, if not extraordinary price. And the best one here is going to be the Highland Park 1995 27-year-old refill sherry butt at cask strength for $385 Canadian. For a bit of context here for my market's pricing structures here. Highland Park 25-year-old runs $1,500 Canadian at 2 years less of age and at a much, much lower ABV. It's very competitive pricing, and it really is an outstanding value, in particular that Highland Park bottling. As I get ready for the Victoria Whisky Festival, I figured it's a good idea to go ahead and pour some of the special Gordon Macphail samples I have kicking around my whiskey shelf. And for the first review in this series, I've decided to review the Gordon Macphail Connoisseur's Choice Mortlach 1989. It's a Speyside single malt Scotch whiskey. It's from Cask 4304, distilled 1989, bottled in 2021, February 25th. It's 31 years old, 54.2% ABV. It's non-chill filtered, it's natural color. It's coming from a refill sherry hogshead. There was only 174 bottles of this made, and it retailed for around $1,300 Canadian. This was named Whiskey of the Year for 2023 by the International Whisky Competition. Now, I'm suspicious of any awards ceremonies really outside of the OSWAs. However, this one does seem fairly reputable. It has the backing of people like Jim McEwen as well as others. This whiskey scored a whopping 97.1 points in this competition, beating out a Cavalan in second, and in third place, the aforementioned 1997 23-year-old Gordon Macphail Kalila that I mentioned earlier at 95.9 points. So Gordon Macphail well represented at this international whiskey competition in 2023. At $1,300 Canadian, I'll never afford a bottle of this whiskey, but I'm damn excited to try it. So let's get to the review. Thank you guys for watching this far in the video, and I love all the comments. If you haven't already, subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment down below. What's your experience with Gordon Macphail? Are you a fan in your market? Are they as competitively priced as they seem to be here in Canada? And if you have a favorite Gordon Macphail bottling, let me know what it is in the comments. 1989 Mortlach. Mortlach is infamously meaty spirit. With the worm, it's a worm tub distillery, and on the nose, instantly, chocolate fudge, big tobacco, yeah, like cigar box, old leather, and like sour stewed raisins, yeah, sour grape, ginger spice, a lot of ginger spice. That's nice. That's like candied ginger though. Oh man, it's hefty, weighty spirit for sure. Which just, Mortlach pairs so nicely with sherry casks because it just has a bit more to it. It can handle those sherry casks a bit better. Prunes, like orange essence, orange oil, sultanas, so a particular type of raisin, I guess. I've had to grab sultanas from the bulk bins recently, so that's fresh in my mind. Honestly, the nose reminds me quite a bit of like an aged, let's say, Madeira wine, fortified wine. But the notes I'm really keying in on that I'm really enjoying are those big tobacco, old leather, cigar box notes, along with the fruitiness balanced with a bit of that spice. There's enough earthiness and meatiness to this nose that the sweet side doesn't overwhelm. So it's very nice. All right, taking a sip, slunge. Wow. That whiskey deserves a speechless response. Absolutely no prickle from the alcohol. There's no heat whatsoever for something that's at 54.2% ABV. That's outstandingly palatable. No heat whatsoever. If there is any spice, any prickle, it's from candied ginger. On the palate, I got earthier notes of leather and tobacco. It reminds me a bit of the earthier, more nutty tones in Oloroso sherry. Going on that nutty topic, if I had to assign a nut to this, this is either verging towards almond or hazelnut. And I think I'm going to go towards hazelnut. And paired with that chocolate, more of a darker chocolate, this is like a less sweet Nutella note. So maybe a dark chocolate Nutella, which I know Kyla would be a big fan of if that existed. Oh man, another sip. Vintage Armagnac and Christmas cake, like fruit cake. This tastes like what, yeah, this is gonna be funny, but this tastes like what I imagine an old library smells like. So if you can actually taste the smell of an old library, that's what this is like. It's just old leather and mustiness. It's vintage. You can taste the age on this. It's not as meaty on the palate as I might have expected from the nose, but there still is those savory notes that are helping to bring about this great balancing act with this spirit. Yeah, it's definitely helping to counter any of the sweeter tones that you would have gotten from the sherry, but I'm going to guess this is Oloroso sherry. It doesn't specify that this is Oloroso sherry, but I would bet money on this being Oloroso. Just with the nutty tones and the overall more earthier aspects of it. One more sip here. My trusty Gordon Macphail Capita. Yeah, it just pairs. Mortlach as a spirit pairs so well with sherry casks. On the finish, thinking about the finish, again, not overly bitter dark chocolate, but like 60% dark chocolate. The leather and tobacco notes again. This is just sherry done really incredibly well and given time. Yeah, this is the type of whiskey that makes you stop and think and just appreciate all that went into making it. This whiskey was part of a virtual tasting that I missed because I was actually on a plane flying to Scotland for my first ever trip to Scotland. So I'm catching up on that now. That's why this sample was on my shelf. And I'm so appreciative to have the chance to experience this whiskey now. So thank you, Gordon Macphail, for making this whiskey, for laying this down in such quality casks in 1989. This is outstanding, and I can see why this won awards. Yeah, if I had to assign a score to this with my whiskey experience, this is one of the best whiskeys I've ever had in my life. It's probably in the top 10 or 15. Yeah, 10 or 15 ever. And I'm gonna probably give this, no, I am gonna give this, I've been considering it throughout this tasting, 93 points out of 100. If I had a whole bottle to go through, I could easily see that score increasing to 94. And it's not fair to score on a sample, but I think it's more entertaining if I do. And I want to be entertaining to you guys as well. Thank you for joining me on Whiskey on the West Coast. Thank you to my Patrons who support the channel in that way. I really appreciate you all. I want to bring you more content. I recently posted a Claxton's Independent Bottling tasting with my thoughts on 7 different bottlings. Go check that out if you're interested. And until next time, guys, for my next Gordon Macphail video, Slange.